Okay, so let's start with the Machzor for the next few weeks. I don't know, we'll see how it goes. We'll probably, whether I'll do 3 weeks on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and then we'll do probably a couple weeks on Sukkot. It's really just an extension of the Siddur, just a different Siddur. We spoke, for those who remember, I had to read over all my notes from the prior years, but for those who remember, when I first started this in 2022, so we discussed why it's called the Machzor, not a Siddur. So we're not going to go into that exactly, but it really the Machzor Hashanah. That's what it means. A Siddur means an order, order how to daven. A Machzor means you return. That's what Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, but you're coming, Tshuva, it's a nation returning, coming back to the original, going back. It's a yearly cycle. The Siddur, we don't view that as like a cycle. It's a daily thing. But the Machzor, it's like the yearly cycle. I don't even think that's what I explained 3 years ago, but that's the idea of the Machzor, Lahachzir, we're coming back to the year again. It's like we live in cyclical time, right? There's linear time, so to speak, just, in the business world, there's no cyclical time. You can't undeclare bankruptcy. Like I do tshuva, my loans are forgiven. It doesn't work that way. That's linear time. But in cyclical time, we come back and things can change. We can undo time. That's the power of tshuva, the unbelievable power of tshuva. It makes no sense. That's the act of kindness of God, that we can undo the past. That's really what we're doing. We're saying we sin, but it doesn't count, or that sin is now the stepping stone towards a mitzvah. So anyways, that's the Machzor. So let's do, there's a lot to do, and I am happy to answer any particular questions you might have, and we already started the one on the David, why we don't say it at Mincha. We'll come back to that. Like the Nusach Svar does, they don't say it at Mariv. That's why we got into the Hillim part. Okay, so but what I titled today's class was, what did I title it? The Biblical Roots of the Machzor, something like that. So basically what I want to talk about a little bit is how Rosh Hashanah went from how it's described in the Bible to how it's described in the Machzor. Okay, if I were to ask you, and I don't, what are the if you open up the Machzor and Rosh Hashanah, what are the major themes of the Machzor? So I know you can tell me Musaf is Malchut, Zichronot, and Shofarot, 100%. But okay, what are the major themes? Some person who's not religious, you're not religious neighbor, they want to come to shul this year, Rosh Hashanah. What themes are they going to tell? What are the themes of the Machzor?
Tshuva.
Tshuva. So that's fascinating. Where do you see that in the Machzor?
Tshuva, tzedakah.
Okay, I hear. It's good. I don't see tshuva as a theme on Rosh Hashanah very much. It's interesting. Of course, it's the first year to tshuva. Obviously, it's connected, but we don't highlight that. There are no slichas on Rosh Hashanah. We say slichas before Rosh Hashanah. We say Yom Kippur is all slichas. There's no slichas on Rosh Hashanah. Somehow, Rosh Hashanah is not focused. I don't see too many things. Maybe I'm wrong. Pick me some piyut or something. That we say that tshuva is a major theme of the Rosh Hashanah Machzor. Yes, it's in Unatan Chokev. I would say the same thing on tzedakah. I wouldn't say tzedakah is a major theme of the Machzor. Obviously, it's very important. I'm not saying it's not important, but those are not the themes of the Machzor. And of course, Unatan Chokev, I believe, is not said in Sephardic shuls. Am I correct about that? It's for sure not in Edom Mizrach. I don't know. In Nusach Svar they said Unatan Chokev is like, it may be the emotional highlight, but it's not it's not fundamental. Remember, I told the story. I think it's a beautiful story. Doesn't apply this year, right? Rosh Hashanah is on Tuesday, Wednesday. But when the story I heard, a beautiful story that when Rosh Hashanah is on Thursday, Friday, it's got a 3-day yontif. So Friday, you have to cook for Shabbos. Got to make an erev tavshilin. When are you going to cook? So they went to Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, and they said, what can we cut out of the davening? We don't want to finish at 2:00 in the afternoon. We want to go home and cook, make for Shabbos, have a meal. So Rabbi Yisrael Salanter said, you can cut out Unatan Chokev. It's not really part of the Shmona Esrei, but you can't cut out because the chazan needs a break. And that's 5 seconds. I daven Shachrit one day. I've been doing for many years Shachrit one day, Rosh Hashanah. Believe me, by the middle of the Amida, I need that break. Al Koma Shebarata, and they're the two tunes. Yeah, 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 yeah. One's longer than the other. So that you can't cut out. You can cut out Unatan Tokef. What a beautiful answer. That's understanding what Rosh Hashanah is about. Ben Adam Lechavero. Yeah, Netanyahu is very important. Okay, but thank you for that. Shua Tila Utstakar are, I would say, are the themes for the Aseret Yemei Tshuva, but not particularly Rosh Hashanah. That's how I would phrase it.
I'd say Malachut.
Malchut. Yeah, so that's number one. I haven't looked at the Machzor to practice. Okay. Hamelech. Hashem Melech, Hashem Malach, Hashem Yimlach Liolam Moed, La Deyad Yimlach Melech Elyon. Melech is all over the page. Malchus. That's and Melech for sure. That's number one. What else?
Shofar.
Birthday of the world.
Shofar.
Excellent. Hayom Harat Olam. Yeah, that's what I would say. The creation of the world. Zeh Yom Tchilat Masecha. Although it's also quite prominent in Machzor. It's the beginning of the world. Right. What else? Hayom Harat Olam. Yeah. What else? Shofar. Well, that's what we do. That's what we're going to get to. But yeah, okay. I wasn't really referring to shofar as the theme. That's part of the Malchut, Zichronot, and Shofar. Hold on. There's one more theme though. Yeah, judgment. Those are what you're saying is correct. These are sort of my subjective things. Yom Hadin. Levochein levavot b'yom hadin lekol amukot badi. Such a beautiful piyut, right? Din. So there's kingship, creation, and judgment. Now, in theory, they have nothing to do with each other. I mean, you can connect them, but each theme the fact that it's the day of the creation of mankind, the world, whatever, that doesn't necessarily relate. It doesn't have to be the same theme of Malchiyot and etc. Connection. Why do we do the day of judgment on Rosh Hashanah, right? But of course, as we all know, and we'll discuss now for a few minutes, and I will discuss the shofar, is none of this is mentioned in the Torah. And that's very fascinating question. And there's no doubt that Rosh Hashanah has evolved and how it was observed. But let's take a look. So how often is Rosh Hashanah mentioned in the Torah? How many times is it? How many? Twice. Is she right? Is Yocheved right? You're going to say Yocheved's always right. Okay. So yes, twice. That's what holiday gets what's in second last place. Rosh Hashanah is in last place of all the times. What's in first place of all the holidays?
Pesach.
Okay, so that's interesting. Okay, good. You make me think. That's what I love. The students, you learn the most from your students. Shabbat, if we consider, Shabbat is mentioned 15 times in the Chumash, I believe, and it's not that I know the whole Chumash in the top of my head, but in Rav Rimon's book, his 2-volume work that they put out recently on Shabbat, so I think he mentions there 15 times. He goes through the 15 times that is mentioned in Torah. That's an interesting question. Is Shabbat one of the Moedim? That's a whole, it is and it isn't. Fine. And Pesach gets the most play because the story is told.
Right.
The story is because our foundational historical event is Pesach.
Isn't it v'zacharta ki, yatzata
Right. That's correct. That's our foundational story. And of course, Rosh Hashanah but what's mentioned as a mitzvah, like to observe it more, I think is Sukkot. You don't have to put one against the other, but in terms of the mitzvot, Sukkot is mentioned more than any other mitzvah. Sukkot is a culminating festival. It's mentioned, I believe, 7 times in Chumash. The stories, of course, for Eira Bo, but that's all Pesach, but that's the story. So yes, and Pesach is our story. There's a mitzvah of Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim. Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim it's a halach. It's to tell a story. That's one aspect. There's like story and there's narrative and law. So in the narrative, Pesach is the most important holiday. In the law, Sukkot. And of course, we know that Pesach and Sukkot are the twin pillars of the Jewish year. And they're both on the 15th. The Talmud actually says we have what we call a Gzei Rashava, to Tetvav. In other words, we have this week's Parsha. A Gzei Rashava is a very modern literary technique, but our rabbis developed it already thousands of years ago, when the same word appears in two different contexts. And the word's sort of out of place a little bit, like this, which we're doing here. So the fact that it's in two different contexts means one context is teaching about the other. So who wants to give me very quickly a famous example in tomorrow's Parsha, in Ki Tetzei? It's a very important mitzvah. And but it's based on Agzeir Shabbat, this literary technique that really has no basis other than a word here and a word there. How to get married? How do you get married?
Yika.
Right. Hareya, it says ki yikach isha, when a man takes a woman, ubala, and he sleeps with her. In the Torah, there's only one way to get married: to sleep with your spouse. That's how you get married. And the Rambam writes, before Matan Torah, till Torah is given, that's how you got married. You live together. That's what it means. You're married. I won't get into the modern halakha shaila. If a couple lives together, are they considered married? Rav Moshe Feinstein, Rav Henkin, not for now. But that was an important, very important question. So we don't do that. That's considered inappropriate. The Gemara says if somebody does that today, and we don't do that either, we'd give them lashes. It's inappropriate just to live together. You should get married. It works. It works, and especially if you do it for intention of getting married. So how do we get married? The man gives the wife a ring. Where does that come from? It says the word yikach, he should take. And that word is even this slightly different conjugation, this kicha. When Avram Avinu bought the field from Ephron Hachiti, it says kach mimena. The word says kika kicha. The word lakachat is used in both. And Avram paid 400 shekel. You don't have to pay 400 shekels to get married. You only pay one fruit. It's very interesting. We don't derive that. We don't derive the amount. We just derive the methodology. That in order to get married, you can use money to get married. And anything that has the equivalent monetary value is good enough. And Rav Shimshon and Rav Hirsch has a beautiful idea. When the rabbis make these word plays, what's the meaning behind it? It's not like some game. It means when you get married till death do us part, as they say. That you're committed to the person even after they pass away. Okay, so we're going to get to that because it's very important for how we know we blow shofar on Rosh Hashanah. But the Talmud says since both Pesach and Sukkot are both on the 15th, Tetvav, we can learn one from the other. Pesach and Sukkot are the flip holidays. There's a lot to discuss here, not really for now, but just I'll mention one idea. Pesach is particularism and Sukkot is universalism, right? Pesach is a unique Jewish holiday. Non-Jews are not allowed to partake of the Paschal lamb. And Sukkot is Prosalenu Sukkot Shlomecha, the Sukkah of peace. We bring 70 bulls for the 70 nations of the world. It's a totally different world. It's the world of Nisan and the world of Tishrei. It's the world of creation and the world of Jewish history. Nisan is the world where we count our months from Nisan, Jewish history. We count our years from the sun, Tishrei, right? And Rosh Hashanah is a Tishrei holiday. So Rosh Hashanah is a universal holiday. It's not a Jewish particular holiday. I think Rabbi Shvat was talking about that this week. That Rosh Hashanah is a universal, and we talk about Noach. Zichronot starts with Noach. It's Atazocher Yitzurei Olam. It's about the world. It's about creation. Creation is about creation of mankind. God didn't create Abraham; He created Adam. So Rosh Hashanah falls in Tishrei because it's a Sukkot holiday. It's like, it's a universal holiday. Pesach is the particular individualistic holiday. And of course, a Jew lives in two worlds. And that's why our calendar is based on Nisan and Tishrei. Our calendar is based on the moon. The moons are the ups and downs in Jewish history. The sun is the constant of nature. The consistency, the natural world, the outer world, that never changes. The sun, the moon, the moon doesn't really change, but from our perspective, it changes. So those are the two basic holidays. Now, so Sukkot is the culminating festival. In other words, we start particularism, and then we move to the universal. And Sukkot is Zman Simratenu is Sukkot. Sukkot, what's the holiday par excellence? Is Sukkot, not Pesach. Chag. Right? When the Mishnah used the term holiday, the holiday, meaning the most important holiday, is Sukkot, not Pesach, not Yom Kippur, not Shavuot. But when the Talmud uses the expression Chag, holiday, the holiday is Sukkot. So it's very interesting. And now, Rosh Hashanah, probably, skipping a little, but probably Rosh Hashanah in the Torah has no, what do we do on Rosh Hashanah in the Torah? I don't know.
Nothing.
Yom Truah.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Oh, the shofar.
Maybe, right. In one place we blow the shofar. The twice the Torah talks about Rosh Hashanah twice here, and one place it's in Parshat Emor, it says Zichron Trua, and in Parshat Pinchas, where it talks about the sacrifices, it talks about Yom Trua, and at least the Jerusalem Talmud derives from this disparity that we only blow shofar when Rosh Hashanah doesn't fall on Shabbat. But when Rosh Hashanah falls on Shabbat, we have a biblical idea not to blow shofar. That's why it says Yom Teruah means a day of blowing. Zichron Teruah means a day of remembering the blowing. We remember something, you don't blow it, right? Right. So that's how the Bavli rejects that interpretation again. But it is fascinating. Only once does the Torah tell us to blow. It doesn't tell us what to blow. We'll get there in a few minutes. It doesn't tell us what to blow. That's all we know. It's a Yom Teruah. Most likely in the Torah, Rosh Hashanah is, of course, many people have pointed this out, it's the seventh month. We all know that 7 is the divine number. It's a number of recognizing God in the world. We all know, 7 days of the week, the seventh year, 7 years of 7 years is the Yovel year, 7 weeks is 7 weeks is Shavuot, right? Pesach is 7 days, Sukkot is 7 days, right? The expression of divine, right? Nature is 6 days, and God is above nature, right? For 6 days, God creates nature. He doesn't do anything on the seventh day. It's above nature, above and beyond nature, the divine aspect behind nature. So that's number 7. That's so the seventh month is going to be an important month. At the seventh day in the seventh year, so the seventh month. So Rosh Hashanah is on a simple pshat level in the Chumash. What Rosh Hashanah is, it's a day to announce that it's the first of the summer. This is the most special Rosh Chodesh because it's the 7th Rosh Chodesh, and 7 is our most important number. But what's important about Tishrei is not Rosh Hashanah. What's important about Tishrei is Yom Kippur, and more important is Sukkot. Is more important than Sukkot. We can discuss that in a little bit, the connection between Yom Kippur and Sukkot. So that's the simple reading. We don't know. Okay, now, yes.
Why are all other our coded 30 and 1 and Rosh Hashanah is 1 and 2?
A very good question. Okay, I don't want to get to Rosh Hashanah is normally when we have Rosh Chodesh, 2 days of Rosh Chodesh. So Rosh Chodesh is day 30. The first day is not really Rosh Chodesh. It's the 30th day. It theoretically could have been Rosh Chodesh because we didn't know a month without 29 days. So the Rosh Chodesh, the first day is day 30 and the second day is day 1. Rosh Hashanah is not like that. Rosh Hashanah is day 1 and 2. I don't know. I have to think about that a little bit, but with the historical film, I'm not even 1,000% sure. Like I don't have a good sharp answer to that question immediately off the top of my head. I mean, the question doesn't really bother me. I think Rosh Hashanah is different. Rosh Hashanah it's not Rosh Chodesh. I would say, now I'm thinking about it, even though I just said that in the Torah, the simple meaning of the Torah is Rosh Hashanah is the special Rosh Chodesh. It's so special we don't talk about Rosh Chodesh. In other words, it's like a funny thing. We tiku b'chodesh shofar b'kesa l'yom chagenu. We cover Rosh Chodesh. I always like to say, because Rosh Chodesh, the noon is jealous, right? The famous Midrash that God created the 2 great luminaries, meaning the sun and the moon were equal. The big Hama'or Hagadol, the big luminary in the day, the small luminary at night. So the Midrash says, hold on. It says God created 2 great luminaries. What changed? So what changed is the moon complained. You can't have 2 kings. So you can't have 2. The buck stops here. Only have 1 ruler. So God said, okay, we'll make you smaller. So the moon represents jealousy, is no place on Rosh Hashanah. Whatever it is, we ignore Rosh Chodesh on Rosh Hashanah. So maybe that's why. I know. But Morris, you want to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say that. I mean, whenever I look at the Chagim, and this probably comes from Rabbi Liebtag, you always have to look at the agricultural background. And basically, Rosh Hashanah is the start of the new fiscal year in agriculture. It's like for Truma, for Maser, for the start of Shemitah.
Rosh Hashanah, Achad B'Tishrei, Rosh Hashanah L'Shanu, Shemitah L'Yovlot.
Yeah, it's a very important day in the Jewish fiscal calendar and agricultural calendar, and that may have been, and it sort of in terms of the time of the year, it makes sense because it's, you're getting to the end of the
And that's why it would be
dry
Yom
season
Hadin.
going into
That's
rainy
why.
season.
That's why it would be a day of judgment, because that's the day you're saying
Exactly.
about the agricultural cycle. In other words, what the Mishnah says, what Morris is pointing out, when the Mishnah lists the 4 Rosh Hashanahs, right? 4. So Achab and Nisan and Rosh Hashanah for kings and for holidays. Echad B'Elul is for animals. Echad B'Shvat, according to Beit Shammai, or on Tu B'Shvat for trees. They all have 1 or 2 things. One, Rosh Hashanah's got 10 things. It's the new year for planting, for Shemitah, for Yovel, for vegetables. So what's all this? So these are all it means for the laws of what year you're in. Like in the second year, you give this tithe, in the third year, you give that tithe. So you have to know what year of tithing you're in. So that is often determined between Rosh Hashanah and Tu B'Shvat, determine those years. So, and therefore, in the ancient world, water and rain was so important that because we in the year, that's why it became a Yom Hadin. Okay, very interesting. But none of that is really in the Torah. Even the fact that Rosh Hashanah, it's the Rosh Hashanah, it's the day we start for Netilah Yerakot, that's not in the Torah at all. I really have to look. Is that something the rabbis sort of made up? In other words, where I don't know. Where do the rabbis know that the Shemitah year starts at Tishrei? Maybe it starts at Nisan. Or maybe it
Wasn't
starts
it, I mean, if you look at Yovel, I mean, it's clear that
the Torah.
Yovel.
The Yovel starts on Yom Kippur, right? So maybe from there. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Okay. Well, very interesting. Okay, but in the Torah, I'm not saying it's the only way to interpret it, but I'm along the lines of what we're saying. Rosh Hashanah is the announcement, and I'll explain in 1 minute why I'm saying that. The announcement of Yom Kippur.
Also, Hakel. Hakel and
Hakel's on
Shemitah year.
Sukkot. Yeah.
Right, but that's also connected to the Shemitah year. So therefore, I think Rosh Hashanah would be also.
Right. The Torah said
That
The
would
Torah
support
says no be Moed Chag HaShemitah or something. Is that the
Right.
expression?
Right.
So b'chag, so it ends on Sukkot. Right. So that's how you know it has to. Okay, maybe it ends. Maybe the year begins on Sukkot. By the way, I can show the verses later. We can look them up. When does a Jewish year end?
Well, it is also the
The
reading of
Jewish
the
year ends
Torah.
not on Rosh Hashanah. The Jewish year ends. We do something weird, right? Rosh Hashanah is the beginning of the year. Yom Kippur should be before Rosh Hashanah, right? Yom Kippur is last year. What did we do last year? Rosh Hashanah is what we're going to do this year, right? Isn't that what we do? We have a sweet new year. It's a new, what we're going to do new. It's looking forward. Yom Kippur is looking at that. Doesn't make any sense. First you have Yom Kippur, then you have Rosh Hashanah. Back, because if the year's over, it's over, finished. What are you? The year's over, finished. You have to do tshuva before the end of the year. It's Yom Hadin. Yom Kippur's not a Yom Hadin. The Yom Hadin, that's the second Mishnah. What's the word? Something olam nidon. The world is judged 4 times. Also downplaying. For Pesach for wheat, Shavuot for fruit, Sukkot for water, and on Rosh Hashanah, Kol B'ei Olam Omrim Lefanav Kivnei Marom. We all pass like sheep before God. So the Yom Hadin, the day of judgment, was on Yom Kippur, on Rosh Hashanah. So what's this Yom Kippur stuff? Do Yom Kippur before Rosh Hashanah. Do all your tshuva before. So okay, we'll just hold that question, but it's a fascinating thing. But if you look in the Chumash, the year ends on Sukkot. Chag Hasif Tkufat Hashanah 3 times. This I never noticed it because I'm like everybody, I listen to the Chumash, but I don't pay attention, unfortunately. So Yoel Ben Nun was the first person where I first saw this. He points out in an article in his book, Zachor V'Shamor, he has a fascinating book on the holidays and agriculture. It has to do with the link between the holidays and agriculture, a lot of it. So he points out that 3 times, the Chumash says, you can look it up now in Shmot, V'chag Hasif Tkufat Hashanah, V'chag Hasif B'tzeit Hashanah. The year ends on Sukkot, not on Rosh Hashanah. The year begins on Rosh Hashanah. So we have a 3-week period when it's last year and this year at the same time. I think I mentioned once before, it's like in the Olympics. We go to the Olympics for every 4 years, not 4 in 1 year, 1 in 4 years. The Olympics, when you have the relay race, right? Canada won the 4x100 relay race. That was a big upset in the last Olympics, right? What's his name? Donovan Bailey? Was he the guy who ran the last thing? That was a big deal. Canada won the 4x100 relay race. They beat the United States to get the gold medal. So what happens in a relay race? The second guy, the way you win the race is how you pass the baton. It's not necessarily the four people who can run the fastest. It's, passing it at the right speed without dropping it, knowing when to start the running. So the guy enters that space and they're both running at the same time. They pass it in. So that's lahavdil. That's kind of what the year's ended, but the new year started, but the old year hasn't ended, which now we can do Yom Kippur because we're still in this year. It's kind of like, and that happens every single day. When does a Jewish day begin? At sunset. When does the Jewish day end? At nightfall. I mean, more or less, right? Bein Hashmashot is not like it's not like many people explain Bein Hashmashot, twilight, the period between sunset and when it gets dark. So many people say we don't know if it's day or night. We're not sure. So we have to be strict. So Friday we have to start Shabbos before sunset, and Shabbos Saturday night we can only end after nightfall. Rav Soloveitchik says no. Rav Soloveitchik explains that it's both. Bein Hashmashot is properties of day and properties of night. It's properties of day because there's still light out. It's twilight. You can still see a little bit. But it's property of night. The sun isn't shining. So it's day and night. So the day, we have this period where it's yesterday and today at the same time. When I said at the beginning, Jews have linear time, Machzor, have cyclical time. You can't have this concept in science. This is a ridiculous concept. But we're lemala min hateva. We're above this. So Jewish time functions differently. So Jewish time, you can have this year and last year at the same time. So that's why you have Rosh Hashanah, Sukkot is the real end of the year. Rosh Hashanah is the beginning of the year, but last year doesn't end. Miketz, Chag HaShemitah, the end of the year is on Sukkot. So that's a fascinating idea about how Jewish time operates. Okay, but let's get back to Rosh Hashanah is mentioned twice in the Torah. Okay, how often is shofar mentioned in the Torah? It's not mentioned by Rosh Hashanah, as we sort of know. Rosh Hashanah says Yom Teruah. I don't know what a Yom Teruah is. It's Zichron Teruah, Yom Teruah. Shofar is not mentioned by Rosh Hashanah. We're going to have to decide, so why do we blow shofar in Rosh Hashanah? What kind of a ridiculous question is that? Since 2 years old, you blow shofar. But like a lot of things, they're so obvious, and then you think about it, whoa, this isn't obvious at all. Not at all obvious why we blow shofar in Rosh Hashanah. But where is shofar mentioned in Torah? So I'll give you a little hint. It's also
Matan Torah.
twice. The shofar is only
Matan Torah.
mentioned twice in Torah. Matan Torah, yeah. And where else is shofar mentioned?
Do you
Yovel?
consider
Excellent.
Yovel.
Very good. So
Yovel.
let's just take a quick look at this because I do think it's important to see. So it's mentioned, okay, and this is where I talk about preparation. Can you see my screen?
No.
I don't know. It takes. Okay. That's right. Hopefully, it will come up in a second. Otherwise, we'll. No, you don't see it still. I don't know why that happens.
It started screen sharing.
No, because I see where it says you are screen sharing and it's blank. I mean, I see my screen like what I'm sharing, but for some reason, now do you see it?
No, it's just spinning, spiraling.
I'm going to wait 5 seconds. Otherwise, we'll forget it. What can I do? Or I'll try it again. Let me try it. Let me stop share. I'll try one more time. If it doesn't work, okay, we'll do without it. What can you do?
Okay.
There it is.
Oh, there you go. Okay. So here it is. Moshe says, so first of all, you see the idea of preparation. Separate from their wives for 3 days. The shofar was very strong. So you see right away, shofar is supposed to induce fear. They were shaking. They were nervous. Wow, the shofar is like a scary sound. And they all came back to the mountain. And again, the mountain, nature was afraid. The shofar is blowing and the people are going crazy. They're afraid of their mind. It's very strong. Moshe speaks and God answers. And so that's shofar. And then you have, after the Aseret HaDibrot, you have this fascinating expression. You have V'chol Amroim. It should say Shomim. And all the people saw the voices. You don't see a voice, you hear a voice. The Torah wants to express it in a very strong language. There's hearing and seeing. It sort of makes no, what do I mean? They saw the voices, halapidim, whatever, the lightning, I think. Kol shofar, and they saw the sound of the shofar and the smoke with the mountain. Wow. Vayaram vayinu, they were shaking. Vayanunu, they were shaking. They stood far away. They were scared out of their minds. So the shofar is to announce this great thing in Mount Sinai, the divine revelation, and it's a very scary idea. Now, shofar is mentioned one other place, and that's in Vayovel. Vayovel, Vavarta shofar, V'saparta lecha sheva shabtot shanim. It sounds already like Matan Torah. Like, I know that's the way we assume that Sfiras Omer leads to the Torah. You have to count 7 years, 7 times. That counts with Svartem Lachem, Mimakrada Shabbat, Shava Shabbatot, Mimotien, until the 50th day. It's very similar. So you see right away, there's a connection. Obviously, the shofar connects Yovel and Matan Torah, but also the 50 days connects it. Sheva Pamim, Veilcha Sheva Shabtot Ashnim, Teshav Arbim Shana. Vavarta shofar, you should pass the shofar. From here, the rabbi, okay, we'll get to what they learn in a moment. Shofar Trua. So here you have the first time shofar Trua. B'chodesh hashvi'i, be'esor lachodesh. On the 10th day, on the 10th of the month, on Yom Kippurim, and again, shofar is mentioned. So these are the only times the word shofar is mentioned in the Chumash. It's amazing, right? Why isn't it mentioned on Rosh Hashanah? It's a good question. I don't know that I have an answer to that question. Now, how do we know we blow shofar on Rosh Hashanah? How do the rabbis know we blow shofar on Rosh Hashanah? Why do we blow shofar? So, Xera Shava. Remember, earlier we talked about wordplay. So the word ta'abiru shofar, like truat, shofar, truat, whatever we had, the al chodesh hashvi'i, the 7th month, right? The 10th day. Rosh Hashanah is the 7th month. So whenever you blow, whenever you truah, so Yovel teaches us about Rosh Hashanah. The same way Marana Machpelah, buying Marana Machpelah teaches us how to get married, right? You got to love your wife till she died, but use money. So too the shofar of the truah of Yovel teaching us that the truah of Rosh Hashanah is a shofar. So obviously, this is not just wordplay. There obviously is a deep connection between Yovel and Rosh Hashanah. The same way there's a deep connection between Marana Machpelah and getting married, right? When the rabbis don't do wordplays, this word, that word, what's the meaning behind the wordplay? When a great author, when they do literary analysis, it's not just the words are the same. What's the meaning that the words are the same? So what's the connection between Yovel and Rosh Hashanah? So firstly, the easy thing to see is now how you see a connection between Yom Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, because Yovel happens. We blow the shofar on Yom Kippur of Yovel, right? Not Rosh Hashanah, and we blow the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. So clearly, you see some link because this idea of a ser to make tshuva, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. Where does that come from? So this idea that Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are connected is because we derive the blowing of the shofar from the Yovel, and the Yovel is on Yom Kippur. Now, the more obvious one, or the more not obvious one, the more straightforward one, without any games, that Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is connected, but it's not in the Torah. It's in Yecheskel, is because the word Rosh Hashanah, of course, never appears in the Torah. It only appears once in all of Tanakh. And you see my screen? You can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. So let's go. Where do I have it? I think Yecheskel. Here we go. Besrim v'chamesh shana legalotenu. It was 25 years of exile. For Rosh Hashanah, it was Rosh Hashanah on the 10th of the month. Wow. So you see already this Rosh Hashanah extends. The year begins, it keeps going. But it's fascinating. The only time in Tanakh that Rosh Hashanah as a name, the Rosh Hashanah is mentioned, it's on the 10th of the month. It's on Yom Kippur. And that's we see from Yovel. So there's a connection. There's all our intertwined. So what's the connection between Yovel and Rosh Hashanah? So let's take a look at the verses in Yovel and see how that connects the themes of Rosh Hashanah. We want to get to the Machzor, right? We want to get to, or at least to some of the themes of Rosh Hashanah. So what do we do in Yovel? Okay, sanctity, kratim dror b'cha'aretz, a day of freedom. What does that mean? V'shaftam isha lachuzato v'isha mishpachto tashuvu. What happens in Yovel? You get a second chance. We go back. You were a stupid business person and you sold your real estate and you went bankrupt and you did this and that. We can restart. We're going to go to cyclical time again. We're not going to go to linear time. We're going to go back to the beginning, right?
We reboot.
Reboot. V'shaptam isha. That's exactly where Rosh Hashanah is. V'shaptam isha lachusato v'isha mishpachto. The idea of the coming together. Kratem dror. What's freedom? Ein lecha ben chorin el misho seiftor. Freedom is the recognition of God that we're not slaves. The slaves go free because a human can't have another human master. Yes, the Torah allows a particular situation, but that's an aberration. We're not supposed to have that. We're only slaves to God. Ki li b'nei Yisrael avadim. You're my slaves. We acknowledge God as the king of the world. We're only to God. That's Kratem Dror. That's Yovel. So these themes of Yovel is very much what Rosh Hashanah, B'shaptem. You want to talk on Tshuva, talk about return, right? This is all what Yovel is about. And this, of course, is what Rosh Hashanah is about. Now, you look in the Mishnah. Did I put it up here? Yeah, I think I did. Shava hayovel l'Rosh Hashanah l'tkiya l'bracha. So the rabbis pick up on this. The rabbis knew how to read Chumash, and the rabbis say that the Yovel, meaning Yom Kippur, you have the 10th day, is the same as Rosh Hashanah l'tkiya l'bracha. What does that mean? The same way we blow shofar. The Tkiya, Shvarim, Trua, Tkiya, that whole thing, and Brachot. We say Malchut, Zichronot, and Shofarot. Rabbi Yehuda says they're not exactly the same. Rosh Hashanah tokim b'shel zecharim, u'b'yovlot b'shel ye'alim. What's the difference between a zachar and a yael? A zachar means a male, a ram, and a yael means ibex. I don't know how they translate it. They did translate ibex. What's the difference? A ram's horn is straight. It's not curved. I mean, it's got the one curve. I don't know how your batokeh blows in your shul, but they got those fancy, windy, the shofars, and some people have straight shofars. So, Morris, in Orchaim, I didn't know this. Rabbi Gemara, I did know this because the people who blow shofar told me this. For many years, Rabbi Gemara didn't allow the blowing of the round shofar, which I found very interesting. He had to blow just the straight shofar. And what does that have to do with it? That has to do with our mood on Rosh Hashanah. Are we bent over? Bent over like, we're a bunch of sinners, or we stand erect? We're proud and strong. And what's our mood supposed to be like? And of course, both are true. So the shape of the shofar represents what we're doing. But the Mishnah clearly links shofar and Rosh Hashanah. And shofar, we're listening, Yovel, Yom Kippur, Yovel, and Rosh Hashanah are mixed. So that's the connection between Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah. That's the connection to the themes of Yovel and the themes of Rosh Hashanah. So that's why the rabbi, it's not just the same word appears, that shofar and trua appears in Yovel. So when trua appears in Rosh Hashanah, it means shofar. The rabbis understood there's a deep connection. There are many words in the Bible that appear all over the place. The rabbis don't derive laws just because the same word appears. The theme has to be connected. So the rabbis understood that Yovel is like a massive Rosh Hashanah. And that's the same way sort of every year Rosh Hashanah begins the process, and we have 10 days, and maybe till Sukkot, because the year really, this idea Hoshana Rabbah, where do you think it comes from? Well, the rabbis made it up, so it's a Kabbalistic Hoshana Rabbah, No, it's because the Torah tells us the end of the year is really Sukkot, Chag HaSiv, Kufat HaShanah. So the rabbis, somehow, we didn't pay much attention to that. Our liturgy didn't pick up on that. Our rabbis didn't pick up. Yom Kippur and Ne'ilah is the final thing. But somehow in Kabbalistic literature, which I don't know anything about, they picked up on this theme that no, we got till Sukkot, we got till Hoshana Rabbah, the last day of Sukkot, because we're still in the year. The year doesn't really end then. Because it's all in the Chumash. You just have to know how to read the Chumash very deeply and very carefully. And that's where the rabbis are expressing these ideas. Now, why does the Torah not mention? I don't know. It's an interesting question. Why the Torah could have mentioned shofar by Rosh Hashanah, but maybe they didn't want to. I don't know. Because maybe the shofar is a fearful sound. That maybe, and they didn't want that mood. In other words, we saw from Har Sinai that shofar is supposed to scare us. and different. Now there is one other time I think that shofar is mentioned, at least one other time, and this is also, what am I doing here? The wrong thing. Let me share my screen. Give me a second here. Okay, it's in the book of Yeshayahu. You can see my screen, right? There. Okay. So a beautiful idea, which we all know. This is, oh, no. Can you see my screen or no? No, you can't see. There's nothing here. That's why. That's very funny. Okay, let me do this again. I have to show you the pasuk. Okay, we'll go here. Give me 1 second. Yeshayahu 27. I don't know why it went away. Okay, we all know this verse. We all know the song, right? Vaya bayom ahu yitaka b'shofar gadol. Ubau ha'avdim be'eretz Ashur v'anidachim me'eretz Yitzrayim v'yishtachavu l'Hashem b'har HaKadosh. The Shlomo Carlebach, I think, made this famous, right? Made this verse famous, right? But of course, it's one of the verses we cite on Rosh Hashanah in Shofarot. The shofar at Har Sinai, invoked fear and distance. The shofar in the future will closeness. Everybody's going to come back. Everybody's going to feel, no, you don't have to be afraid of God. We didn't know what was going on. God's a mountain sign. Oh my God, he held the mountain over our head because we wanted to back up. We didn't want to get the Torah. So you had to instill fear. But ultimately, the Torah is beautiful, what God gave us, and eventually we will blow this great shofar, and we won't run away in fear. We're going to come close. Ubau, those who are lost and forsaken, and people will all come back. Now, it's very interesting. Here also you have, I think this is a universal theme. I mean, it's talking about Jews, but it's talking about the world. In other words, the idea is, that everybody's going to come. Yeshayahu is very much into that, where the Or Lagoim, all these ideas, the universal, I mean, it's not only Yeshayahu, but Yeshayahu is the one who expresses it the most, the universal mission of the Jewish people, like what I quote all the time. We come to the Beit HaMikdash, is Ki Beiti Beiti La'ikari L'chol Hamim. That's Yeshayahu. It's a temple, a house of prayer for all people. So you have the shofar originally is at Mount Sinai. That's for the Jewish people. But in the future, there will be a shofar that everybody's going to hear. And that's, of course, what Aleinu was all about, right? But then, I mean, this...
Vaya bayom ahu.
Yeah, yes, but I mean, Aleinu really ends Hashem Yimloch L'olam V'ed. The Ne'emar Vaya Hashem L'melech HaKol Ha'aretz V'yomu Yeh Hashem Echad is an add-on to Aleinu. Like, if you look in Malchiyot, we don't say that verse. I don't think we do. In Zechariah, the Ne'emar Vaya Hashem L'melech HaKol Ha'aretz V'yomu Yeh Hashem Echad Shmo Echad. That we add that on to Aleinu. But the Aleinu ends Hashem Yimloch L'olam V'ed, which is a pasuk from Shirat Hayam. That pasuk is when they cross the sea. At the end, Moshe said, Hashem Yimloch L'olam V'ed. God will be our king forever. But and then that's our king of the Jewish people. But we don't want to stop there. It's a beautiful. We haven't gotten to Aleinu yet in our Siddur class, right? But you understand what's going on here. Hashem Yimloch L'olam Va'ed is for the Jewish people. We saved us from Egypt. It's our distinction from the nations of the world. And then we added on into our liturgy a pasuk from Zechariah that says, no, it's not enough that God is our king. God will be the king of the entire world. And that's, again, back to Rosh Hashanah. We said Rosh Hashanah is a Tishrei holiday. Nisan is the particularism. Rosh Hashanah is a universal holiday. So it's the Aleinu, it's the universalism. It's the shofar that everybody in the world will hear. Okay, so I think this is how I understand, what's going on here. How even though it says in the Torah it's Rosh Hashanah, I'm sorry, it doesn't say it's Rosh Hashanah. All it says it's a Yom Teruah. The Torah gives us hints, as Rabbi Liebtag always likes to say, we're not supposed to read the Chumash, we're supposed to study the Chumash. And though God doesn't want us, he doesn't want to spoon feed us, he wants us to dig it out. And so that's why you see all these words count. Now, I mentioned, just I'll finish up with an idea we have spoken about, I think, at various times. Is Rosh Hashanah a day of fear or a day of joy? Is it Yirat Hashem or Avat Hashem? Right, and which is it? So we said you have to be happy when you finish. Right? That was the debate. Do you fast on Rosh Hashanah? How can you eat? It's Yom Adin. Are you crazy? Your life and death. Or no, we're relaxed, joyful. We have a relationship with God. Wow, it's a joyful day. So obviously, all these questions, the answer is both. They contradict each other. So what? That's life. We live with contradictory ideas. Both are true. We have to balance them. We have to balance these ideas. But we mentioned before, this is the debate of how you say Malchuyot, right? So let's very quickly. We have okay, yeah. Let's see if I can get this idea in. So, how many brachot we discussed last week or 2 weeks ago? Last week in our Siddur class. Why do we say 9 brachot at the Musaf of Rosh Hashanah?
Chana.
Mention
Chana.
it.
Chana mentions God's name. It's 9 times. So that's Malchuyot, Zikronot, and Shofar. How many brachot should we say on Rosh Hashanah?
7.
10. Malchuyot, Zikronot, Shofarot, and Kedushat Hayom.
Kedusha.
The
Right.
sanctity of the day that we say it every that it's a yontif. It's a yontif that we say that Malchut Zikron and Shofarot. So why don't we say 10? That's Rav Soloveitchik's whole thing. We're not allowed to pray. Who are we to pray? A chutzpah? That's the Ramban. It's an act of kindness. So in order to pray, we need a biblical precedent. I'm not praying. I'm just following what Chana did. If Chana can pray, I can pray. We follow our great matriarchs and patriarchs. So Chana prayed, but she only prayed 9 times. So I can only pray 9 times. Unbelievable. So you have to combine something. So there's a debate in the Mishnah. What do we combine here? I don't think I brought up the Mishnah, but let's just quickly see it because I think it's important. Mishnah, it's got to be here. Okay, yeah, it is. I can find it in a second. Okay, Seder Brachot. Okay, how do you daven on Rosh Hashanah, right? And on Yovel, of Yom Kippur. Omer Avok Baruch Hashem, the same we do every day. It's the regular day of the year, too. Okay, V'kol Malchuyot imahem, and you bring Malchuyot with Kedushat Hashem. That makes sense. Kedushat Hashem ends Hamelach Hakadosh, Ha'el Hakadosh, Hamelach Hakadosh. So obviously you're going to say Malchuyot with Hamelach Hakadosh. That makes the most sense. That's the third bracha. Veino Tokeya, but you don't blow shofar yet. Don't because shofar is a form of prayer, and you're not allowed to pray. The meaning prayer form of a request. For is a request to God, a prayer, beseeching God. You're not allowed to beseech God in the first 3 brachot. We spoke a few years ago. How can you add Zachreinu L'chaim? That's a big problem. Not everybody was happy with adding that. You're not allowed to pray and the first 3 brachot. So we can't blow shofar. That's probably. He doesn't explain that. That's probably what he means. Why we don't blow shofar, but that's Malchuyot. So then you say Kedushat Hayom, the holiness of the day, then you blow. Zichronot, you blow. Shofarot, and you blow. And then you say the last 3 brachot, avodah, we do every day, Birchas Kohanim. It's interesting, calls it Birchas Kohanim, not Sim Shalom. Okay. Diva Rav Yochanan ben Nuri. This is Rav Yochanan ben Nuri. Amar lo Rabbi Akiva. No. Imeno tokel malchiyot. What an amazing question. Why? Obviously, if you're not going to blow shofar, there's no point to say God is the king. Amazing. Like why? It doesn't have to be that way. That's what Rabbi says. Without shofar, we cannot properly coronate a king. Have you ever gone to the Prince Charles? They blow the trumpets. You cannot coronate a king without trumpets. So if you're not going to, it's better don't talk about it. It's worse. It's incomplete. Like I said at the beginning, if you're going to say extra tefillot, tehillim, say it properly. Don't add on. If you're going to add malchiyot, make sure you do it right. Without tekiah shofar, there's no malchiyot. Lama hu maskir. It's such a beautiful question. Why mention it? Ela omer avok word kedusha v'kol malchiyotim kedusha hayom. So the malchiyot goes with kedusha hayom v'tokeah zikron of tekiah. So there's a debate. It's a beautiful debate. So Rav Soloveitchik explains that Rav Yochanan ben Nuri and he says that is the introduction to Malchiyot of Rav Yochanan ben Nuri. And we maybe we'll pick up on this a little next week. That's the introduction. And even though we follow the view of Rabbi Akiva, we wanted to keep, in other words, we say all this extra stuff before we say HaMelech HaKadosh. Why do we say all this extra stuff? So because we wanted to we didn't totally ignore Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. We don't say the 10 verses. We don't do the full Malchiyot. Wanted to sort of ignore. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri has a point. He's not out to lunch. He has a point. So we're going to say his introduction, just like Aleinu is the introduction to Malchiyot of Rabbi Akiva. And so that's what we have. The beautiful idea. And this is Rav Soloveitchik idea, beautiful. And then he says, look at it. ובכן תנפחתך שם אלוקיך על כל מסך ויהי עמך על כל מה שבראת ויראוך. Ema, pachad yira, in one sentence. Fear, trembling, oh my gosh. I'm afraid of God. God is my king. Rabbi Akiva, Aleinu l'shabeach l'Adonai kola. Even the tune is, we don't sing that tune for Aleinu, like on Rosh Hashanah, Aleinu. Okay, whatever. But it's a much closeness to God. Hashem Elokeinu Lamed. So that's, of course, Rabbi Akiva, the great optimist of the Jewish people. Rabbi Akiva always saw the good and the bad. That there are foxes in the temple. He's smiling. He's happy. And they're killing him. He said, "Great, I can love God with all my soul." It's crazy. But that's Rabbi Akiva. So Rabbi Akiva is much more optimistic. So those are the two views of Rosh Hashanah. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri and Rabbi Akiva are arguing: is Rosh Hashanah Yira or Ava? Is God Avinu or Malkeinu? Obviously, both agree it's both, but what's the emphasis on this idea of Rosh Hashanah? And the rabbis, I think the rabbis purposely left in they wanted the acknowledgement of Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. Yes, they wanted that pachad and yira. We want Aleinu l'shabeach. We want that closeness. We are going to eat a meal and we are going to be happy. And the Mishnah says Yontiv shav Rosh Hashanah shachal liot b'Shabbos, when Yontiv of Rosh Hashanah. So we are going to have that happiness. But it's sort of this duality. Okay, let's just quickly review. Pick up next week, please, God. So what do we say? We said the three themes of the Machzor, right? Creation. We haven't really gotten to that one yet. Creation, kingship, and judgment. So we've discussed kingship a little bit judgment, not so much, right? But none of those, of course, appear directly in the Torah, because the name Rosh Hashanah doesn't appear in the Torah. Shofar doesn't appear by Rosh Hashanah. We derive shofar from Yovel, right? Because Yovel, so obviously, some wordplay. So obviously, Yovel is the key to understanding what Rosh Hashanah. It's a reboot. It's a restart of the year, right? We go back. We made mistakes. We sold our property. We lost our property. We get it back. We're into slaves. That's bad. You're not supposed to be a slave, but sometimes it happens. What can you do? We go free because there's only one king in the world. There's only one king, Malchiyot. So that's Yovel. Yovel teaches us what Rosh Hashanah is all about. But Yovel, the culmination, Yom Kippur, not Rosh Hashanah. It's on Yom Kippur. So Rosh Hashanah is connected to Yom Kippur because the year doesn't end on Rosh Hashanah. The year begins on Rosh Hashanah. We're in the new year, but we're still in the old year, right? We still cash a check if you write 5785 in whatever it is. Okay, I don't know what they do. Okay, so I don't know. Will they cash a check in Israel if you write 5785? If you write Elul, write the Hebrew date? I have no idea. So I'm sure go Bank Leumi, write 13 Elul 5785. I don't know if I hope they'll cash it in the Jewish state. Okay, whatever it is. Okay, and then we discussed that shofar itself is mentioned in Yovel, and then it's also mentioned only by Yom Kippur. By Har Sinai, and the Har Sinai is a very fearful shofar. By Yachrad Kol Am, they were distant. But shofar also heralds in the return when all nations will recognize God. Yeshayahu, the vision of Yeshayahu, Ubao of the Me'aretz Ashur, Vanidachim Vishtachavu Hashem, everybody will come. And the Aleinu has that dual motif. Hashem Yimloch L'Olam V'ed, that's us. Oh God, we crossed the sea, we escaped from the Egyptian. But we add on, it's not there. We add on a pasuk in Zechariah. In Zechariah, that by V'nemar v'yashem l'melech al kol haaretz b'yamo yeh Hashem echad u'shmo echad. The particularism and the universalism. Particularism, we focus on Pesach. The universalism, we focus on Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is the day, it's Noach, it's Adam, it's creation of the world as a whole. Okay, that's more or less what we did. Okay, please God, we'll continue next week. Of course, next week, Benny, I believe, I have to finalize it. I'm pretty sure. So I know it's Friday, but whatever. I think Benny this week will be giving a special year in English, supposed to Hebrew. I told him I wanted to give in English, but I think till he finally agreed, I think he's going to give this week, and then in 2 weeks a share in English. We'll send out an email. Today, he just announced it. And then, of course, Yossi Slotnick from Yeshivat Malay Gilboa will be starting a 5-part series because he'll go through Chol Hamoed Sukkos. He's going to do the Haftorot. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, and Simchas Torah. It's going to give a shir in each of the Haftorot. That's starting Thursday, 9:30 in the morning. Because 9:30 in the morning Eastern, Shuli Mishnah, of course, is at 12. And of course, a week Sunday, we have our Yom Kippur, Yom Ayun, and then 2 weeks
Hey,
after.
Rabbi, who's giving the Haftarah thing?
Yossi Slotnick. I don't know if he learned in Gush. His family made it. He was like 4 years old when his parents moved to Israel. Yossi Slotnick. He spoke in the
Yeah.
summer. He's a Rebbe in Yeshivat Malay Gilboa. Okay, okay. And
Has
they
there
raise-
been a shear on the David Hashem Orivi Yashi?
That's Benny Shear.
Oh,
That's,
okay.
I hope Benny. That's the we were talking about that.
Oh,
He should give a share on the dub. You see, everything fits in. We try to. We'll see. But I just have to confirm. Now my schedule changed. That's why this year 9:35. I have a crazy schedule this year. I'm teaching at 8:30 and at 10:40. So I got to go now and leave. So
Okay.
in between the break in between my two classes at chat this year, we don't control our schedules. It's very hard to do these things. Last year I didn't teach on Friday. That's a miracle that they gave me as a schedule without teaching on Friday. But anyway.
Shabbat Shalom.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyways, nice to see everybody for the next week. A good year. Be happy. Yivdo Hashem
Thank you.
b'simcha. Rosh Hashanah is coming. God's our King. Leinu l'shabeach. It's beautiful. Okay, everybody. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you.
Oh, there are
Shabbat
I see a
Shalom.
couple
Thank you.
questions. I'm sorry. In
Yom
Hasidic
Na'im.
schools, the school year starts after Sukkot. Wow, that's cool. That's cool. Wow. Creation, Revelation, Redemption. Yeah. That's very Jonathan Sachs develops that a great thing. Creation, Revelation, Redemption. Okay, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. Be well. Thank you.
Shalom.
Thank you.